All right, let's see how this one goes. So the biggest things that we take out of week one are Kenneth Gainwell, maybe the lead back for the Eagles. Kyron Williams, maybe the lead back for the Rams. And Puka Nakua may be a 1-to-1 replacement for Cooper Kupp. The Puka Nakua news probably shouldn't be surprising. Hopefully you don't have to pay up for him. The Gainwell news and the Kyron Williams news actually shouldn't be news, because when the coaching staffs are telling you that like these are going to be their lead backs, sometimes like that's all the tea leaves that you need. What's his face? Puka. I mean, that's a little bit more intuitive. It's the same process about how like Sky Moore fails, or Devin A-Chain just is a healthy scratch. So other things to take away that I'm looking at is the Falcons are what we think they're going to be. They're not going to throw the football. So Pitts and London are going to be, not good. Algier is going to be the thumper. Bijan, and this is one of the great things, is Bijan is going to be used as a pass receiver. He hopefully is going to end up with being the leading target guy for the Falcons. That would be great, because you want those high efficiency receptions and not the low efficiency rushes. Let Tyler Algier be that like RB2 type. That's great. That's something that we learned with the Panthers. Miles Sanders is going to be a 3-down back. They don't have a lot going for them in the passing game. The interesting thing that I'm going to go look at tape and I'll be able to talk about later on this week is these 2-for-6 and 2-for-5 showings by Terrence Marshall and Jonathan Mingo. If these are shots, sometimes those shots start connecting downfield. Everybody gets comfortable. I watched some of the tape that the Panthers just like, they are what we thought they're going to be. They're not particularly good, but like if you get the passing game going down the line, these are guys that you can get for free if they are being pushed vertically down the field, and then you can stack them on your the bottom of your bench, and hopefully things work out. Let's see. Bengals Browns. Maybe Chubb's going to be using the passing game. He had 4 receptions. That's a good thing. Like, stuff that we're expecting. Watson still isn't particularly good. Jaguars are probably going to be capped offensively. I kind of tend to think that like Trevor Lawrence is never going to be elite. He's probably going to be good. That may hurt the offense a little bit. Colts, Anthony Richardson is what we thought he was going to be, and you got him. And Michael Pittman may be the recipient. That's good. No good backs coming out in Indianapolis. And if you're an Anthony Richardson owner, that's probably something that you want, because that just means more rushing upside for Anthony Richardson. Once Jonathan Taylor comes back, it's probably going to cap Anthony Richardson, because they can make the focal point of the offense be Jonathan Taylor, and right now you're getting the focal point of the offense being Anthony Richardson. Let's see. Moving on, Buccaneers and Vikings. The Bucs are probably way worse than we thought they were, because if they can't put up points against a very bad Vikings offense or defense, like sell. Rashad White, not really a thing. Sean Tucker's probably going to eat into that work. The Vikings are, they're just doing Viking things with Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to overreact to anything week one. It's week one. Jordan Addison might be a fairly good wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. That's kind of the tea leaves already kind of told you that. There's some moving on to the Titans Saints. There is some hankiness going on with Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears. I kind of talked to my my co-owner that when we have Henry, that we need to get him off the roster sooner rather than later than they get burned. I was watching the ticker and go, why isn't Derrick Henry just like getting carries in the second half? And from what I heard on the other fantasy football sites, like Derrick Henry didn't start the game. Derrick Henry got outsnapped by Tajay Spears. Rumors have it that like if the Titans are going to tank, then Derrick Henry is going to get traded. You can play the game of seeing where he goes and if he's going to get used. But me personally, I want to get Henry off the roster. I want to pick up Spears for free and maybe get the best of both worlds. Nothing else is really interesting other than Titans aren't going to be good, it looks like. 49ers Steelers they couldn't get over the hump of the 49ers defense. 49ers defense may be like the best, if not just purely one of the best defenses in football. It doesn't mean sell on the Steelers. It just means that, like I told my co-manager, we started Kenny Pickett, said if we don't trust him against the Steelers, we don't trust him against anybody. We roll with Kenny Pickett. We're going to get the W this week, but it doesn't mean that like we're going to stick with Kenny Pickett. It was not pretty. And Deontay Johnson went down with a hamstring. Allen Robinson led the team in receiving. I got to go watch that, but that was all in garbage time. I don't know. The Cardinals Commanders, I mean, Sam Howell did what I thought he was going to do, but they barely were able to beat the Cardinals. It's not a good sign for either team. Selling pieces. The only kind of interesting thing about this is like Brian Robinson looks like he's a bell cow. I mean, that's the easiest way to put that. 19 carries, and then he had 2 targets, and you see Antonio Gibson really not a thing. I mean, the guy that's probably like more of a threat to Brian Robinson, maybe Chris Rodriguez. I think he got the first carry of the game. Just little things I'm going to go look up before I freak out on anything. Ravens lost Dobbins. Probably doesn't mean that anybody's going to be used consistently in the backfield. I've kind of been saying this about Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but I don't think he's necessarily a good quarterback. I think he's benefits from being able to use his legs, and like it just didn't look good. Texans don't look good. That's not surprising. Nico Collins is going to be a guy that we should be stashing at the bottom of our bench. This is stuff that we already knew. Shouldn't surprise anybody. Let's see where we go from there. Packers, Bears. Jordan Love looks like he might be good at football. Justin Fields still having difficulty throwing. Aaron Jones hurt his hamstring. Luke Musgrave led the Packers in receiving with Christian Watson out. Dobbs is maybe a thing. I mean, nothing was too surprising with this one. Like Roschon is probably a little bit of a stash. He's going to probably work up. He did look better. I did watch the game because I wanted to see how Musgrave looked when he fell down on a touchdown catch that he didn't make. So there are things that are up in that world. I don't think Jordan Love's necessarily like he's not a rusher. And I don't think he's going to be able to sustain 3 touchdowns a game that really makes him fantasy relevant. So like, you have to get these huge passing upsides. And when we get to Justin Herbert, we'll talk about that in a second, or you have to be able to supplement it with rushing upside. And if Jordan Love, if he's going to do 245 a game, which I think is probably like fair to say, he has to be able to supplement it, and 3 for 12 is not going to get there. You see like Justin Fields, he goes 9 for 59. That's like almost 6 points on top of just 200 yards rushing, and then like the passing touchdown. So like the way that guys get there matters. And even if you're a good quarterback, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be able to get there unless you have the rushing upside to go with it. Eagles Patriots, I did watch some of this game already. It was a shit show. I'm not really concerned about either team. The Eagles jumped out 16-0, which I was looking at. I don't know about how Kenneth Gainwell is going to be used. I saw it popped up as a rib today. The head coach said that like no way does he want to have a game where DeAndre Swift only gets 2 carries. Penny being a scratch, I don't think is that big of a deal because like your 4th running back has to be able to contribute on special teams. If you don't have a guy contributing on special teams, we're going to talk about this later with the A-chain, that like that really hurts a team's ability to do certain things. So like I just don't think that the backfield is going to be entirely shaken out. Gainwell right now, I mean, you should be really aggressive if you get a back that's going to get 20 touches on an offense that projects to be the Eagles. Like that's all in type of money, and work it out after the fact. They're nothing particularly interesting because the Patriots defense is supposed to be good. It's kind of hard to shake out like the Eagle or the Patriot backfield because Ramondre Stevenson was supposed to have a flu. Like Hunter Henry, I was already talking about him potentially leading the team in targets. Kendrick Bourne, hey, if you like that type of thing, probably capped. This is probably not going to be indicative of either team, especially because of the weather. And there's only a little bit to take out of some of this stuff. Keep going down the line. to the Dolphins Chargers. I mean, the Chargers are going to rush this much. It's going to cut into Herbert and those wide receivers. And this is the other thing about A-Chain. I'm not ready to say I'm wrong yet, but if the Dolphins are going to throw for 466 and spin it around the yard outside of Tyreek Hill, eventually someone's going to make them have to earn their lunch and run the football. And when your starting backs are doing, less than 4 yards a carry, that's not making other people take away from your main threat, which is Tyreek Hill. So eventually they're going to have to find someone that makes teams stack the box. Oh, and here's the caveat. The Chargers were I think the worst team in football last year when it came to stopping the run, and they played a team that they couldn't run on this year to start the season. That's not a pretty good indication that the Dolphins are going to be able to consistently do what they did in the passing game, because everybody can just sit there and they can play the run and dare you, or they can play the pass, especially in this case, Tyreek Hill, and dare you to run the football. And if they're going to give up 3.7 yards a carry, they're going to be like, we win because we're not going to let you beat us with 15 targets to Tyreek Hill for 215. The Chargers, on the other hand, if they're going to run the football, and this is really bad for the Chargers from a fantasy perspective, this affects us, that now they have two running backs and they can't win a game where they have almost 200 yards or they have over 200 yards rushing. That means that you're really bad on defense, because you should be grinding clock out just to limit the game, and you can't win. And then your quarterback, who we expect from a fantasy perspective to lead the league in passing and touchdown passes, he only goes for 228. I mean, this is not a good sign against a team that's just basically hucking it around the schoolyard and extending the game because they're just getting chunk plays. Not a very good sign for anybody, on the Chargers perspective, or long-term sustainability of the Dolphins offense. Because if you could do that every game, the NFL record for receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and passing yards is going to be obliterated. And I would take the under on that actually happening. Teams are going to watch what happened in this game, and they're going to make the Giants, run the football, and make the Dolphins run the football. And the Dolphins, I don't think, want to do that. Let's see, Rams, Seahawks. This is one of the big surprises of the day. Seahawks, who I thought were going to be really good. Geno Smith, Cinderella turns back into a pumpkin. Not a very good game. I'm going to watch some of this stuff to see how it went down, because the Rams were supposed to have the worst defense in football. Obviously they didn't. Puka is not surprising. Tutu Atwell went off too. I mean, now you want pieces of this. Kyren Williams, who they already said that we want him to be his lead back, went for 15 carries. I'm not too concerned about the 2 touchdowns. Touchdowns come and go, but the 15 carries and then you 2 more targets. I mean, if the Rams offense is even okay, getting an RB2 off of waivers is something that you want to be looking at. And then for Seattle, I just don't think there's anything to take away from this after week 1. So Puka, if you need a wide receiver too, because I think that's what he projects to. The other thing is the Rams may be trading Cooper Kupp. He is 30 years old. They may not need him. And, he's got that hamstring. So he comes off the hamstring. They can replace him with Puka. I don't know, temper your expectations with Puka, probably a wide receiver 2 rest of season, whether or not Kupp comes back. But you got to love 15 targets. Hopefully you don't have to pay too much to get him on your roster if you haven't got him yet. And Cowboys, Giants, nothing to take out of it. That's not true. The 2 things I will take out of this is the Cowboys were screwing around way late into the game when the game was already over, when Tony Pollard should have been out of the game, and they were still giving him carries. They definitely don't have a problem, making Tony Pollard a bell cow. They're giving him worthless carries in a game that's already over, when they should be resting him. So he doesn't put the miles on there, and they just didn't care. They were just giving him more work. If you're worried about how much they're not going to be giving Tony Pollard work, I think it's a pretty good indication that they don't care about that in a game where it's really tough to kind of gauge anything. Waller, had the hamstring, but he did look pretty good because, we're expecting him to push vertical. That's what he did. So, but who knows? It was such a bad game. So the main takeaways of this week are kind of like just listen to what's being said, because if they tell you this is a lead back, he may be a lead back. If it looks like there's targets, to go someplace, they usually go to running backs. But if you have a clone of the player that you've lost, maybe that guy will actually be the clone. And Nico Collins, hey, he's finally breaking out. It may look like that. That's probably like my number 4 guy. Coming off waivers, if you haven't already picked some of these guys up. And Josh Kelly is a priority. If you have Austin Eckler, probably has some standalone value. If for some god awful reason, Algiers on your wire, whether or not you have Bijan or not, he should be picked up. Stuff that we've already discussed here. A-Chain, probably a drop at this point. I'm kind of waiting to see what comes out with that. And I think that's all I've got for today.